All right, so um, you sent over this article about a possible chemical incident at that Trump rally in Tucson, and wow, this is this is one of those stories that just makes you wonder, like, what is actually going on here? You know,
Hmm.
it's October 2024, Trump's back on the campaign trail, and suddenly you've got whispers of cover-up, health scares. It's a lot.
Yeah, it really is. And what's crazy is how this whole thing seems to have like totally flown under the radar. We're talking about potential chemical exposure at a presidential campaign event, and it's not front page news. It's strange.
Exactly. So, okay, let's break this down. This article is from Seth Abramson's Proof, and it starts by painting this picture of like total chaos at this rally at the Tucson Music Hall.
Mm.
They're saying multiple people, like right up near the stage, started reporting eye injuries, even some cases of temporary blindness.
Yeah, and they really hammer home the lack of any clear answers about, what caused this whole thing. The article runs through some possibilities, starting with the most intense one, a deliberate attack. But if that's the case, who would even do it? And why target a rally like that?
Yeah, that does sound like some kind of like House of Cards thing.
Yeah.
Then there's the theory that maybe it was just an accident, like maybe someone was using some strong cleaning products or something. But they're pretty quick to dismiss that idea, saying that the specific symptoms people were reporting don't really line up with that.
And this is where it gets interesting, right? Because if it wasn't an accident and it wasn't a planned attack, then what are we left with? And what they're suggesting is that it could actually be connected to this other claim they've been pushing, that Trump has a history of what they're calling accidents on stage.
Hold on, I'm not sure I follow. The article is saying that the so-called accidents are because of like incontinence
Yeah.
and that the campaign is going through all this trouble to like cover it up.
That's what they're claiming, yeah.
Yeah.
And they link back to earlier proof articles about it and even have like a whole video analysis that they say supports this theory. But this is where we have to be careful, right? We have to keep in mind this information is all coming from one very specific source, and they definitely have their own perspective on all of this.
Yeah, good point. Easy to get caught up in all the drama,
Yeah.
but got to stay critical. So, okay, we've got these reported injuries. We've got this campaign that's being super tight-lipped about the whole thing. And then on top of all of that, you've got this whole other layer of these alleged accidents and cover-ups. It's a lot to process. Where do we even go from here?
I think the next step is we got to really look at the evidence, or honestly, maybe more importantly, the lack of it. Because the article is making some pretty serious accusations here, but are they actually backed up by anything? What's the timeline of all this? And I think the biggest question of all, honestly, why is a story this weird, this potentially huge, totally absent from the mainstream media?
Right, right. Okay, I'm starting to see why you sent this over. This is a deep dive if I've ever seen one. Okay, so let's dig into this whole uh, this theory they're laying out here. They're saying that those eye injuries
Yeah.
back at that rally weren't from an attack or just like some random thing that happened, but like a cover-up. That went wrong.
Yeah, it's a lot to unpack.
They're claiming that the campaign used some kind of chemical to hide the smell of one of these accidents,
Hmm.
and that somehow this chemical ended up like affecting people who were close by.
It's a pretty out there theory, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But the article tries to support it by pointing to how the Trump campaign is acting, right? All the silence about what
No.
happened.
Right.
Like, why not just say something? If it was just a cleaning product, why not just say that?
Exactly. You'd think we would have seen some official statement by now, or even some of that security footage to like clear things up.
Right. And the article says that this whole being quiet thing, it's part of a bigger pattern. And they use proofs, other articles about these accidents to back that up. Basically saying the campaign is like really trying to control what people know and keep anything embarrassing out of the public eye.
Okay, but even if we like entertain this whole cover-up idea for a minute, what are we even talking about here? What kind of chemical would you even use for something like that?
Yeah.
Something strong enough to mess up people's eyes but not cause like mass panic.
Yeah, that's one of the many, many unanswered questions here. They don't get into any specifics about what this chemical supposedly was, so it's really hard to even know how believable any of this is.
You know, it is kind of interesting, though, when you think about the timing of it all. This supposed incident happens, and then almost immediately after, the Trump campaign is like beefing up their whole security setup. They even asked for military protection, didn't they?
He did.
Is there something there? Like, is that connected?
That's what they want us to think. The article tries to connect those dots and say that the whole security thing was actually about controlling information and stopping leaks about these accidents and how far they were going to cover it up.
Okay, I see what they're getting at. Like, you create this environment where everybody's on edge, worried about some kind of threat from the outside. then it's way easier to just kind of downplay or dismiss something like this incident, right?
You're right. Exactly. But again, got to remember, it's all speculation at this point. They're laying it out like a timeline, like it's fact. But without anything concrete to connect those dots, it's all just a theory.
So, okay, we went from this weird thing at the rally to like a whole conspiracy theory about cover-ups. And are there health concerns? Are there not? It's a lot. And it does make you kind of wonder, what else is going on that we're not seeing?
Yeah, no, it really does make you think. And this is where the article brings up a really interesting point, which is what about the media in all of this? They're saying this whole story, all of these allegations are being completely ignored by like all the big news outlets.
Which, if it's true, that's kind of terrifying, right? We live in this world where there's just like information overload all the time. And we kind of have to trust the media to, sort through it all and tell us what's important. So what happens when they're just straight up missing stuff?
Yeah, it makes you wonder what you're not being told, Like
Okay.
what stories are being pushed, what stories are being buried, and why. And they're saying this is intentional, right? That it's all about protecting Trump and his image. But honestly, media bias is a whole other can of worms. It's not always like some big coordinated thing. Sometimes it's about what stories get attention and how they get talked about, even who they're willing to talk to.
Right. It's like that saying, they don't tell you what to think, but they tell you what to think about. And in this case, they just don't want to think about it at all, I guess.
Exactly. And all of that just brings us back to like the whole point of doing this in the first place. You got to think critically, you got to look for different perspectives, and you can't just accept whatever you hear, even if it sounds, out there.
Okay, so where does this all leave us? We still have no idea what actually happened at that rally in Tucson. Was it an attack? Was it an accident? Was it a cover-up? Or was it something else that we haven't even thought of?
Honestly, we might never know. But what really matters is that we keep asking these questions, even when they're uncomfortable. This whole deep dive has been wild, but it really shows how important it is to stay curious, keep asking questions, and don't ever underestimate how important it is to dig a little deeper.
Yeah, you said it. It's a good reminder that sometimes the most important information is the stuff that's not in the headlines. Thanks for sending this over. It's been enlightening, to say the least.
Absolutely. And to everyone listening, we'll leave you with this. What do you think about all of this? What really stood out to you? What other questions does this bring up? Keep looking into it, keep asking questions, and keep thinking critically.